The wind howled through the jagged peaks, swirling snowflakes that danced like tiny ghosts in the fierce blizzard. The rugged mountain landscape was unforgiving, blanketed in white and shrouded in icy silence. Trees bowed under the weight of the snow, their branches resembling skeletal hands reaching for the sky. The air was sharp, biting at any exposed skin, creating a sense of isolation that settled deep in the bones. In this desolate landscape, young tracker Luke Hale pressed on, his breath forming clouds that quickly disappeared into the swirling storm. He had spent countless hours navigating these mountains, familiar with every hidden valley and rocky outcrop. But this blizzard was different, more ferocious, more determined to obscure the world around him. Snow piled higher by the minute, making it difficult to distinguish between the ground and the air itself. Luke's heart raced with urgency. He sensed that something wasn't right, and unsettling stillness loomed in the biting wind. As he journeyed deeper into the storm, he couldn't shake the feeling that he was being watched. The crunch of snow underfoot echoed in the silence, his instincts sharpening as he scanned the area for any signs of life. It was then that he heard it, a low growl followed by the unmistakable sound of paws padding through the snow. Compelled by a mix of curiosity and dread, Luke cautiously approached the source of the noise. Just ahead, through the curtain of white, he spotted a dark shape, a wolf pack, encircling something on the ground. His heart sank as he drew closer. There, lying helplessly in the snow, was a woman, unconscious and vulnerable. Without a second thought, Luke dashed forward, adrenaline surging through him. The wolves noticed him instantly, their growls rising into a chorus of warning. But Luke refused to back down, he had to save her. He swung a branch he had picked up along the way, using it to fend off the closest wolf while keeping his eyes on the woman. As he reached her side, he could see her face pale against the white snow, her breath shallow. With determination coursing through him, Luke scooped her up and began to retreat toward his cabin. The wolves hesitated for a moment before deciding to abandon their pursuit. The howling wind chased them as Luke stumbled through the drifts, every step a battle against nature's fierce grip. Finally, he reached the safety of his small mountain cabin. As he kicked open the door, a rush of warmth greeted them, an inviting contrast to the storm outside. Gently, he laid her down near the fireplace, watching as her chest rose and fell slowly. He hurriedly grabbed blankets and wrapped them around her while keeping an eye on the door. Outside, the blizzard raged on, but inside the cabin, a flicker of hope ignited. Little did Luke know that this chance encounter would change everything, not just for him but for an entire community waiting beyond the storm's fury. Luke Hale was a young tracker with an uncanny ability to read the wilderness. Growing up in the mountains, he had learned the ways of the land from his father, a seasoned woodsman who taught him everything from tracking animal trails to identifying edible plants. The mountains were not just his home, they were his playground, filled with secrets and whispers known only to those who listened closely. As the blizzard raged outside, Luke's mind was focused on survival and the thrill of exploration. Each flake of snow that fell added a layer of challenge to his search for wildlife. He moved with a grace that many in the settlement admired, often navigating through harsh conditions where others would hesitate. Today, however, the fierce winds howled like a pack of wolves, reminding him of nature's power and unpredictability. Pausing briefly in a clearing, Luke scanned the terrain with narrowed eyes. He could sense that this storm had driven many animals to shelter, but something deep inside urged him to press further. The snow-topped trees swayed around him, their branches creaking ominously, but the forest also felt alive, filled with subtle signs. A faint track disturbed by the wind caught his eye. It was fresh and unlike anything he had seen before. Determined, Luke followed the trail, his instincts honed by years of practice guiding his every step. The wild landscape transformed under the swirling snow, but Luke remained sharp and aware, driven by a connection to the land that few could understand. He had spent countless days wandering through these mountains, reading the world like a story waiting to be uncovered. Suddenly, a low growl broke through the wind's howling chaos, causing Luke's heart to quicken. His body tensed as he turned toward the sound. The growls grew closer, accompanied by paws moving stealthily through the snow. He had heard tales of lone wolves circling outnumbered prey, using their cunning to strike when enemies least expected it. Today, he could very well be part of a drama that nature played out in wild places. With a mix of curiosity and dread coursing through him, he cautiously approached, alert for danger but also guided by an unyielding sense of duty. As he stepped through the snow-laden branches, he spotted them, a pack of wolves encircling something on the ground. It was hard to see what lay beneath their watchful eyes due to the wind and snow obscuring everything ahead. Fueled by a moment of recklessness and bravery, Luke dashed toward the wolves without thinking twice. He knew he had to act quickly if there was any chance of saving whatever lay helpless beneath them. As he arrived on the scene, he caught sight of a woman unconscious and marred by the cold white drifts surrounding her. In that instant, all thoughts of wildlife faded. He knew he had to save her. This decision would set off a chain reaction that would intertwine their fates forever, but at that moment all that mattered was reaching her and facing whatever dangers lay ahead. His heart pumped with adrenaline as he prepared for battle against not just the wolves but also against nature itself. The storms howled louder around him. Little did he know how meaningful this stormy encounter would truly become. As Luke Hale pushed through the biting cold, the wind howled like an angry spirit, challenging him with each step. The blizzard roared around him, but his focus was now narrowed on the low growls that had suddenly emerged from the chaos. Intrigued and a bit anxious, he quickened his pace, following the sound that felt oddly urgent against the backdrop of swirling snow. With every stride, Luke's heart raced faster. He had encountered wolves before, but never in such a menacing context. As he emerged from a thicket of trees, he spotted them. A pack of wolves, their sleek forms moving cautiously in and out of visibility. But what caught his attention was not just their presence. It was what they circled with watchful eyes. In a small clearing partially sheltered by heavy branches, an unconscious woman lay amidst the stark white drifts. The sight sent an electric shock through Luke. His instincts screamed at him that time was crucial. She was vulnerable and exposed to both the elements and the fierce predators that loomed nearby. With little thought given to his own safety, Luke dashed forward, propelled by a blend of bravery and urgency that burned deep within him. He knew what was at stake, and there was no room for hesitation. As he approached the scene, he quickly assessed his options. There were too many wolves for reckless confrontation alone. He reached for the sturdy branch still clutched in his gloved hand and swung it with authority as he shouted to drive the wolves away. They turned their gaze toward him, their eyes glinting like shards of ice in the harsh light of the storm. For a moment, confusion rippled through the pack as they tried to gauge whether this newcomer posed a real threat or not. Luke's mind raced while adrenaline coursed through him. As he laid eyes on the woman again, he could see her face. A canvas of pallor against the white snow and an expression devoid of consciousness. She looked so fragile, as if any gust could sweep her away entirely. The sight ignited something protective within him. There would be no backing down. With a swift motion, he positioned himself between her and the wolves. He swung the branch again, this time striking the ground next to one of the closest wolves to indicate he wasn't afraid. He took a step closer to her and yelled, trying to add weight to his voice even as it trembled against ferocious winds. "Get back!" At last, sensing the intensity of his stance and hearing his fierce call, some wolves began to retreat, growling softly but unwilling to challenge him outright. Seizing this moment of distraction, Luke dashed toward the woman without looking back. He could feel every instinct pushing him forward. Kneeling beside her in frantic urgency, he quickly checked for signs of life. Shallow breaths and cold skin confirmed her perilous state. He lifted her gently into his arms despite how heavy she felt, with fear settling like lead in his stomach. With strength born from desperation, he turned away from the wolves who were slowly regrouping but now more hesitant than before. Luke made a dash for safety. Every footfall felt monumental. The rushing wind no longer just spoke of nature's fury but heralded a fateful choice, intertwining their destinies against fearsome odds. This crucial moment would shape not only her life but also forge an unexpected bond between two souls threatened by the wilderness itself. With the woman safely in his arms, Luke Hale took a deep breath, steeling himself for the journey ahead. A sense of urgency propelled him as he turned away from the wolves now lingering at the edge of the clearing and began his trek toward the shelter of his cabin. The snow swirled around them in a frenzied dance, driven by winds that seemed intent on testing his resolve. Every step felt like a monumental task. The heavy weight of the woman pressed against him, her form cold and lifeless as he navigated through the drifts that reached above his knees. His muscles strained with each movement, growing weary under her weight and the relentless cold enveloping them. Yet he pushed through, determination burning bright within him, a fire stoked by an instinct to protect. The howling winds obscured all sound except for their labored breaths. Luke's heart hammered against his chest, reminding him of the critical nature of their situation. He glanced down at her face, pale and serene, which drove him to quicken his pace despite exhaustion creeping into his limbs. As he trudged onward through the biting snow, thoughts raced through his mind. Was she still alive? Would he reach safety in time? Suddenly, a gust of wind blasted past them like a high-pitched scream, tearing at his clothes and nearly causing him to stumble. He stumbled but caught himself just in time. With newfound resolve, Luke redirected his focus on finding solid footing as he pressed forward. Each slow-going step added to the struggle. It required deliberate strength and balance amidst nature's fury. For brief moments during that arduous journey, doubt crept into Luke's mind. What if he failed? What if she didn't make it? Yet each pulse of adrenaline surged through him acted as a reminder. There was no room for failure now. He inhaled deeply through gritted teeth, letting the icy air fill his lungs while pushing aside every fear that threatened to swallow him whole. As they moved further away from what had been their alarming encounter with predators only moments before, it became harder to keep track of direction beneath the white veil surrounding them. But Luke knew these mountains well. Home was only a few miles ahead if he could endure this journey. The faint outline of his cabin gradually began to appear in the distance, a beacon amidst chaos, its silhouette promising warmth and safety. Luke's heart surged at the sight, urgency renewed its rhythm within him as hope soared alongside fatigue. In those final steps towards sanctuary, every bit of strength depleted in his legs was reclaimed by purpose. The unwavering desire to keep her safe drove him fiercely forward. He could make it. That thought propelled him as he pushed past exhaustion into sheer determination. Finally reaching his cabin door, Luke carefully eased it open with an elbow while balancing her in one arm. A rush of warmth greeted them like hope personified just beyond winter's grip. As he crossed over that threshold into safety, safe from wild animals and howling winds alike, he set her down gently on whatever surface greeted them inside. With trembling hands and worry etched across his brow, Luke wrapped blankets around her small form and moved swiftly about trying to rekindle flames in the hearth, while casting glances back towards her peaceful yet fragile face. This moment would forever change not just their lives, but the course of their intertwined destinies, as they found themselves facing an uncertain future together against nature's dark might. As Luke Hale settled the unconscious woman onto a worn but sturdy blanket in the corner of his cabin, he felt the weight of uncertainty bearing down on him. The flickering firelight danced across her face, illuminating the delicate features that had been hidden beneath the snow. He knelt by her side, his breath coming in heavy puffs as he fanned the flames to life, desperate for warmth to seep back into her chilled body. The interior of the cabin was small and rustic, filled with an assortment of hunting gear and provisions. The air smelled of pine and smoke, yet it felt strangely suffocating now with so much at stake. As the fire crackled and popped, Luke also felt a surge of hope. Perhaps she would recover soon. He reached for a cloth to wipe her brow, noticing how pale she looked against the backdrop of their makeshift home. Minutes stretched like hours as he tended to her fragile form. Luke's hands trembled from both exhaustion and concern as he placed a log onto the flames, pushing them higher to ward off the biting cold that still clung to her skin. Shadows flickered across the walls, casting eerie shapes that made him jump every time he glanced away from her face. Suddenly, he thought he detected a shift. Her lips moved slightly, barely forming words that were lost in quiet murmurs. Luke leaned closer to catch what she might say. "Help me." Her voice was weak and tremulous, sending a shockwave of urgency through him again. She stirred slightly beneath the blankets, her eyelids fluttering as if awakening from a deep slumber. "Hold on," Luke whispered fiercely, his heart pounding at the sign of life. "You're safe now." He brushed some strands of hair away from her forehead while trying to keep his own anxiety at bay. It had become harder to breathe in this secluded space where hope battled despair. He filled an old kettle with water and placed it over the fire, knowing that warmth would be essential for both of them. While waiting for it to boil, Luke wished he could do more than simply keep watch. Dread clawed at him when he thought about the implications if she didn't wake up completely. What would happen if she remained in this state? Would anyone believe him if they found out? As the steam began to rise from the kettle's spout, Luke turned back toward her only to find those mesmerizing eyes slowly opening wide. Confusion danced within them as they took in their surroundings. His cabin was foreign yet filled with warmth against a backdrop of relentless winter outside. "Where am I?" she croaked softly, voice hoarse yet imbued with a curious strength that surprised him. "Safe," Luke replied quickly but kindly, excitement mingling with relief as he smiled at her recognition of reality creeping back. Slow but steady. "What happened?" she asked next, memory returning piece by piece like shards of glass coming together to form a clearer picture. "A pack of wolves surrounded you," he explained gently but honestly while gauging her reactions carefully. I found you just in time. Her eyes widened further as realization dawned. Luke could see the rush of emotions playing on her face, fear mingling with gratitude, and it stirred something deep within him that felt undeniable. Tension hung thick in the air as their initial connection swirled between them, a mixture of unease and understanding, as they faced not only their immediate situation but also an uncertain future bound together amidst nature's cruel whimsy. Each question lingered heavy like winter's chill. Who was she really? What brought her here? And why did fate intertwine their paths under such extraordinary circumstances? In this moment suspended between past mystery and present challenges, they found themselves linked by silent promises that whatever lay ahead, they would face it together against whatever storms threatened them next. As the fire crackled softly in the background, casting warm shadows across the cabin's rustic walls, the woman began to regain her strength. Luke watched her closely, wondering about the story behind her delicate features and the fear that had briefly clouded her eyes. He was determined to know more about the mysterious figure he had rescued, for it felt as though her past was intricately connected with fate. Can you tell me your name? Luke asked gently, his voice steady despite the whirlwind of emotions swirling within him. She hesitated for a moment, taking a breath as if summoning courage from deep inside. I'm Clara, she replied, her voice still shaky but gradually gaining clarity. Clara Thompson. Clara, Luke repeated, letting the name settle in his mind. What happened to you out there? Her gaze flickered to the warm glow of the fire before turning back to him, a shadow of anxiety passing over her face. I was part of a wagon train heading west. We were searching for a new place to settle, she began, her words flowing as memories resurfaced. But we were caught in a storm and separated when we tried to find shelter. I got lost, and then I don't remember much after that. Luke listened intently, his heart heavy with empathy. He could only imagine what it must have been like for her family traveling in search of a new home, filled with hope until nature's wrath tore them apart. How long have you been missing? He asked, trying to grasp the gravity of her situation. 3 days, she murmured, closing her eyes as if weary from reliving the memories. I thought I would die out there. The cold and wolves, her voice trailed off, and Luke noticed a shudder pass through her. We thought you might have been lost forever, she finished for him, pain flickering in her eyes. My family is searching for me. They must be frantic. The realization washed over Luke like cold water. Her family would be looking for her, likely anxious and desperate in their search. The wagon train that had once been filled with life and laughter now faced a dark uncertainty, much like the one he had encountered on his own solitary journey through these mountains. What do you remember about them? Luke asked, trying to draw out more information that might help both of them. They've misjudged this journey, Clara said softly. My father wanted farmland for us all, but some members were wary of traveling so far into the mountains. She paused, running fingers through her hair with a sigh. It's not easy living out here. My brother wanted to turn back, but my father was determined. Luke nodded in understanding. Families often clashed over dreams and fears during tough times like these. They will come for you, he assured her with sincerity. I'll help you find them. A flicker of hope danced in Clara's eyes as she studied him curiously. She could see the sincerity in his intent and could sense his unwavering spirit beneath his rugged exterior. But she also realized how intertwined their fates had become. He had saved her from death's grip, and now they were bound by a shared mission, to reunite her with those who loved her. Yet beneath that hope lingered tension. What if they arrived too late? What if Clara's family assumed she had gone? 1,000 questions filled the air like arrows aimed at their hearts as they faced an uncertain future together. In that small cabin sheltered from winter's wrath outside, 2 lives merged into one story, a tale forged by survival against nature's cold ambitions and driven by an urgent desire to return to loved ones waiting patiently against impossible odds. Their journey had only just begun, and neither of them could anticipate what lay ahead as they braced themselves against whatever storms awaited them next. The dawn broke over the rugged mountains, casting a pale light that pierced through the remnants of the blizzard. Inside the cabin, Luke Hale was busy preparing a modest breakfast by the fire, hopeful that Clara would feel well enough to eat. The warmth of the flames and the smell of cooking food filled him with optimism. Perhaps today marked a turning point for both of them. He glanced over at Clara, who was still resting peacefully on her blanket, her features softening in sleep. Suddenly, an unsettling noise cut through the morning calm, the creaking sound of horses moving closer. Luke's heart dropped as he instinctively recognized that something wasn't right. Outside, he peeked through a small window and witnessed a line of figures emerging from the treeline, heavily bundled against the cold and armed with rifles. Panic surged within him. Members of the wagon train had finally arrived, their faces shadowed in determination as they surrounded his cabin, blocking any escape routes. It became clear that they believed Clara had been kidnapped, a misunderstanding driven by fear and uncertainty. He could see their eyes glinting with resolve. They were prepared to take matters into their own hands. "Stay here," Luke whispered urgently to Clara as he moved to bar the door. The tension in his chest tightened further as he pressed his back against it, bracing himself for whatever might come. Outside, he could hear raised voices growing louder, men calling to one another, clearly debating their next move. "She's in there. We need to get her back," one voice shouted, filled with urgency. With each passing moment, dread swirled around him like the fading winds outside. Did Clara have any idea about the turmoil brewing just beyond their shelter? What had begun as a bond forged in crisis was now threatened by misunderstanding and mistrust. "Luke," Clara called weakly from behind him, her voice breaking through his thoughts. She stumbled forward slightly but remained steady enough to support herself against a table. "What's happening?" "Just stay calm. I'll handle this," Luke replied firmly as he moved from the door to face Clara directly. "You need to stay hidden." Suddenly there was a loud knock followed by shouts from outside. "Open up. We know she's in there." Luke's mind raced. He had no weapons to defend himself or Clara if things turned violent. They were trapped between fear and suspicion. There was no avoiding conflict now. Knowing that they would soon burst through if he didn't act wisely, he thought quickly about what to do next. Clara stepped forward again and put her hand on his shoulder firmly. Despite her earlier weakness, there was an undeniable strength in her gaze now. "I can talk to them," she said earnestly. "They'll listen if I explain what happened." But Luke shook his head. "It's too risky. They may not see your side." She looked at him with conviction. Her brother and father were out there somewhere among them, and it ignited a spark of hope within him. Her family was searching for her out of love and desperation. "I have to try," she insisted quietly but firmly. "Please." With clenched fists and uncertainty gnawing at him, Luke finally relented. Clara had experienced so much hardship already, there was no way he could stand in the way of her courage now. "Okay," he agreed reluctantly while glancing toward the door where angry murmurs continued outside. "Just let me handle it first." Clara nodded determinedly as she positioned herself behind stacks of barrels. If things escalated beyond words, she wanted a chance to remain hidden until ready to emerge safely. As Luke opened the door slowly, a thin barrier between heated conflict and potentially life-changing peace, the tension crackled sharply in the air like electric energy before thunderstorm strikes. The time for healing and understanding lay ahead, divided by raised rifles and angry voices eager for answers. But now fate rested upon one moment where two vastly different worlds met face to face under harsh scrutiny amidst chilling darkness, slowly giving way to light once more. As the tension outside escalated, Clara's heart raced, beating in time with the urgent voices demanding answers. Luke stood ready at the door, muscles tense with the weight of the moment. Clara could sense the fear and mistrust rolling in from the armed settlers gathered outside, their intentions shrouded in doubt and desperation. But she also felt a growing determination within her. She had to act. "Luke, let me speak to them," Clara urged, her voice steady despite the chaos swirling around them. His eyes widened in surprise, but there was a spark of understanding as he considered her request. "No, it's too dangerous. I can't let them think—" He began to protest, but she interrupted him. "They won't know unless we tell them the truth. I can't let them blame you for something you didn't do." Clara took a step closer to him, her resolve solidifying like ice in winter. "If they see that I'm safe and hear my story, they will listen." With a deep breath, Luke recognized the fire in Clara's eyes, a fierce courage he had come to admire over their time together. Perhaps she could bridge this gap between misunderstanding and resolution. Reluctantly, he nodded, stepping aside from the door just enough for her to see outside. Clara straightened her back as she moved toward the door, drawing on every ounce of strength she had. With a heartbeat of trepidation echoing in her chest, she pushed open the door just wide enough to step outside, while still keeping herself shielded behind the cabin's frame. "Wait!" she shouted as the startled settlers raised their rifles higher at the sudden movement. "I'm Clara Thompson. I'm safe." The eyes of several men widened in surprise as their attention shifted from Luke to Clara. Her voice rang out with unmistakable confidence, something that resonated even amidst fear-filled hearts. It took a moment for the settlers to register who she was, their weapons lowering slightly but still held on guard. I was lost," Clara continued breathlessly, raising her hands calmly to show she meant no harm. "I became separated from my wagon train during a storm. Luke saved me from a pack of wolves. He is not your enemy, he is my friend." Murmurs rippled through the crowd surrounding the cabin as confusion mingled with reconsideration. She could see doubt flickering across their faces, the conflict between what they believed and what they were starting to understand. "Your rescue came at great peril," one man finally spoke, his voice rigid yet wavering. "But how do we know you are not being forced?" "Because I would never stand here if I was." Clara's voice rang out with undeniable clarity. "I want to return. You know me, my father is searching for me. You must believe me." A murmur spread among them. Her name seemed familiar. Those that accompanied her understood its weight. Clara Thompson was known among the wagon train members as steadfast and true. "Clara?" one of them shouted suddenly, stepping forward from the ranks with a look of recognition dawning upon him. "We thought we lost you forever." "It's true. I was lost," she confirmed earnestly, moisture gathering in her eyes as relief washed over her tired form. "But I found more than that. I found someone who risked everything to save me." Luke stood quietly behind her, relief flooding through his veins over her bravery and strength as they witnessed this remarkable moment unfold right before them. A fragile hope flickering like sunlight breaking through storm clouds. As quickly as tension erupted moments ago, now bonds began knitting between Clara's truth and newfound understanding among those who had surrounded them defensively at dawn's break. The atmosphere transformed, suspicion began wavering against heartfelt emotions driven by love and longing, the very core of community itself bringing back what it had almost lost through misunderstanding. At that moment, Clara took another courageous step out into full view of both families. The story had shifted from fear to connection. And together they all now wished to mend what inclement weather had torn apart while emerging into a freshly sewn tapestry woven by threads of courage against adversity for all involved. With the crowd's attention firmly focused on her, Clara took a deep breath, steeling herself for the difficult tale she was about to share. The sun peeked over the horizon, casting a warm glow that contrasted sharply with the chill still lingering in the air. She glanced at Luke, who stood protectively behind her, and felt a surge of gratitude for his support. This was her moment to bridge the gap between fear and understanding. "I was part of a wagon train headed west," she began, her voice steady as she looked into the faces of those surrounding them. "We were searching for a new place to settle, somewhere we could call home." Clara paused, recalling the excitement and hope that had filled her family and friends as they embarked on their journey. But everything changed when a fierce storm hit us unexpectedly. The winds howled and snow fell like a blinding curtain. As she spoke, Clara could see the settlers leaning in, their expressions shifting from suspicion to curiosity. She continued, "In the chaos, my father tried to guide our wagon to shelter, but I was separated from them. I lost my bearings in the storm and wandered into the woods, desperate to find my way back." Clara's gaze drifted momentarily as memories of fear and uncertainty washed over her. "I thought I might never see my family again. That's when I encountered the wolves. I was terrified. I had never felt so alone." The settlers exchanged glances, some nodding in understanding as they recognized the peril she had faced. "But then Luke found me," she said, her voice rising with conviction as she turned to look at him. "He risked his own life to save me from the pack. He carried me through the blizzard back to his cabin, where he kept me safe and tended to my injuries." Clara could see the disbelief begin to fade in their eyes as they processed her story. "I wouldn't be standing here if it weren't for him," Clara added passionately. "He is not a kidnapper, he is my friend, my savior." Her words hung in the air like a lifeline thrown across turbulent waters. One of the men stepped forward, his brow furrowed as he considered her account. "But why didn't you come back with us? Why wait until now?" he questioned. "I didn't know if anyone was looking for me," Clara replied earnestly. "I thought I was lost forever. But I wanted to come back. I wanted to return to my family." The urgency in her tone resonated with those around her. A murmur of realization rippled through the crowd as they began to comprehend the truth of her words. The fear that had clouded their judgment started to dissipate like morning fog under a rising sun. They exchanged glances among themselves, recognizing Clara not just as a name but as someone they cared about deeply. "Clara," another voice broke through from within the group, filled with emotion. "We thought we'd lost you." Your father has been sick with worry. With tears welling in her eyes, Clara stepped forward further into the light, encouraged by their reactions and feeling an overwhelming sense of connection forming between them once more. Please understand that I am safe now, she implored them all. Luke saved my life, and now I need your help to return home. As Clara recounted her tale of survival and courage, suspicion transformed into understanding among the settlers. They began to see Luke not as a threat but as an ally, a protector who had helped one of their own in her darkest hour. The collective heartache they had shared during this difficult journey now shifted toward hope, a mutual desire to reunite Clara with her family. In that moment, bonds were forged anew among them all, witnesses to resilience thriving against adversity, ready to mend what had been frayed by misunderstanding and fear while embracing a shared future built upon compassion and trust. As Clara's heartfelt story resonated in the hearts of the settlers, the atmosphere surrounding the cabin transformed dramatically. The tension that had once crackled in the air like winter's chill began to dissipate, replaced by a warmth that spread through the gathered crowd. Luke stood back, a mixture of relief and pride swelling within him as he observed Clara's bravery forging a bridge between two worlds, his own and that of the wagon train. One by one, faces that had been hardened by mistrust began to soften. Murmurs of understanding swirled among the settlers who were finally able to comprehend the gravity of Clara's ordeal and the kindness Luke had shown her. The realization swept through them: they were not just strangers caught in a moment of fear but part of a larger community facing common hardships. Clara, one man stepped closer, lowering his rifle with cautious optimism. I'm sorry for how we treated you and your friend. We were afraid for your safety. His voice wavered slightly, betraying the lingering apprehension but also an earnest desire to reconcile. Clara's eyes sparkled with gratitude as she took a step forward. I understand, she replied gently, her heart swelling at the willingness to understand that was now evident in their expressions. We've all faced dangers both from nature and misconceptions. But together we can rise above fear. Luke watched as Clara spoke with grace and authority, speaking not just for herself but on behalf of their shared experiences in perilous times. As she continued to relate her story, how she had wandered lost in the wilderness and how Luke had saved her, the settlers gathered closer, drawn by her powerful narrative. I was terrified, but I found a friend, Clara said earnestly, glancing back at Luke. He didn't know me or my family, yet he risked his life to bring me back to safety. That kind of courage speaks volumes. A wave of camaraderie washed over the group, loosening tight grips on weapons as empathy replaced apprehension. The crowd began to murmur among themselves, nodding heads showing acceptance as they recognized the connection they shared with both Clara and Luke. I say we welcome Luke into our fold, another settler called out, his voice resonating with warmth and sincerity. He has proven himself to be a true friend. Encouraged by this declaration, others began to echo agreement, one after another offering words of acceptance and acknowledgement. Another settler stepped up and offered both Clara and Luke hearty handshakes, signaling not just forgiveness but also an invitation into their community. Ultimately, it was evident to everyone present that compassion had triumphed over suspicion. An invisible thread had woven them together through shared understanding, each person nurtured by common humanity now standing united against the uncertainties that lay ahead. As they gathered around one another, exchanging stories and laughter amidst brightening skies, clouds slowly parting to reveal a radiant sun, it became clear that their small settlement would indeed thrive not only through shared struggles but also through understanding one another's heartaches along this wild journey in life. The peace forged that day would not be forgotten easily. It blossomed into newfound friendships built on trust rather than mistrust, a community rising from shadows into light while celebrating a spirit resilient enough to weather storms together, always ready to stand against whatever new challenges lay ahead for them all. As the days turned into weeks following the dramatic resolution of Clara's ordeal, the settlement began to buzz with a newfound energy and spirit. With winter releasing its grip, life slowly started to bloom anew. Each morning brought vibrant colors, birds returning to fill the air with cheerful melodies and flowers bravely peeking through the melting snow, symbolizing the resilience of those who called this land their home. The settlers, now tightly knit by shared experiences and mutual understanding, found joy in organizing community gatherings to celebrate their unity. They held potluck feasts in the warm sunlight, where laughter echoed alongside the clinking of dishes as they shared stories under the expansive sky that had once felt foreboding. Children ran freely, their giggles a joyful melody against the backdrop of nature. Amidst this atmosphere of camaraderie blossomed a deeper connection between Clara and Luke. They were often seen working side by side, Clara's gentle spirit complemented Luke's rugged determination as they helped rebuild supplies and create a welcoming environment for newcomers who might join their small community. Each exchanged look and quiet smile held unspoken promises, forging a bond that went beyond friendship. One evening, amidst preparing for another potluck celebration, Clara approached Luke with an idea. "What if we host a dance?" she suggested, her eyes sparkling with excitement. "It can be a way for everyone to come together, not only to celebrate our survival but also to embrace new beginnings." Luke raised an eyebrow, intrigued yet amused by her enthusiasm. "A dance? Here." He chuckled softly, leaning against a workbench in his cabin. "I never figured you'd be one to suggest something so grand." "Why not?" Clara grinned playfully. "We've faced enough darkness. Let's bring some light back into our lives." Her words resonated with Luke as he saw how her optimism had helped lift them all from their troubled past. So began preparations for what would surely be an unforgettable evening filled with sunlight, laughter, and shared warmth. As word spread throughout the settlement about Clara's dance plan, excitement grew among everyone. An invitation to celebrate not just survival but newfound love and hope woven into every note that would soon fill the air. On the night of the dance, lanterns flickered like stars against the deepening blue sky as settlers gathered around wooden tables adorned with wildflowers and homemade treats. Music floated delicately through the cool evening breeze, a lively tune played by skilled hands strumming guitars while others tapped feet eagerly on the ground. Luke took a moment to step back from the crowd, watching as Clara twirled elegantly beneath cascading lights with others joining her joyously on the makeshift dance floor. Happiness radiated from her being, their connection was palpable in every graceful gesture she made, drawing him closer. As night unfolded, an enchanting realization began taking hold among everyone present. Life had changed deeply for each one of them in simple yet profound ways after weathering storms both literal and metaphorical together. When Clara momentarily made her way over to him amidst cheers and applause that erupted at her spontaneous dancing display, Luke felt compelled to take her hand unexpectedly. "Would you do me the honor of sharing this dance?" he asked earnestly, his heart thrumming in rhythm with music surrounding them. With laughter spilling out like sunshine itself over whispered secrets exchanged between them in gentle movements as they danced side by side under a moonlit sky, the first signs of love blossomed from enduring hardships faced together became undeniable. As others joined them, celebrating both love found and unity forged, the wedding bells rang later that summer throughout their resilient settlement. A symbol marking moments when spirit gathered strength alongside community amid uncertainty, transforming into rebuilding relationships everywhere. Hopes anew took root once more against history of survival intertwined compellingly. As the seasons changed and life in the settlement blossomed, the spirit of community transformed into something beautiful and profound. The once wary settlers, now bonded by shared experiences and a collective understanding of hardship, had discovered that love and resilience could bloom even in the harshest of conditions. Clara and Luke's journey had woven a vibrant thread through their lives, reminding everyone that kindness held immeasurable power. The wedding bells that rang across the valley one bright morning symbolized more than just Clara and Luke's union. They represented hope reborn for all who had faced trials together. Friends and neighbors gathered to celebrate the couple, encircling them in warmth as laughter filled the air. It was not only a celebration of love, but also a joyful acknowledgement of their commitment to each other and to their growing community. Underneath a canopy of flowers, adorned with colorful ribbons fluttering in the gentle breeze, Clara and Luke exchanged vows, surrounded by those who had once viewed them through clouds of suspicion, but now embraced them with open hearts. As Clara spoke her promises with radiant joy, Luke's eyes sparkled with admiration and gratitude, reflecting the journey they had taken together from darkness to light. "Through storms we have forged our path," Clara proclaimed, her voice steady and strong. "Together we will build a home filled with love, understanding, and compassion." Cheers erupted from their guests as they sealed their promises with a kiss under the bright sun. In that moment, it felt as if the entire settlement breathed together, a collective sigh of relief and joy echoing into the surrounding mountains. Following the ceremony, festivities blossomed in full swing. Music floated through the air while everyone danced together beneath the wide expanse of blue sky. Children ran around joyfully, weaving between adults celebrating both love found and new beginnings within their community. The earlier troubles that had weighed heavily upon them seemed like distant memories, a testament to their resilience. As evening fell, lanterns flickered alive against the dusky sky like a constellation come down to earth. Couples twirled beneath stars gradually emerging overhead, conversations flowed freely with newfound connections forming across shared tables laden with food prepared lovingly by many hands. In those moments of laughter and connection, it became clear that Clara and Luke's bond served as a catalyst for transformation among their neighbors, a reminder that adversity could bring people together in ways they never imagined possible. With every cheer for the newlyweds, every dance step shared, there was a promise implicit that they would support one another through future challenges while celebrating each victory earned along this unpredictable journey called life. That night, as Clara rested her head on Luke's shoulder while the stars twinkled above them like diamonds sprinkled across velvet, she felt enveloped by a warmth that went beyond physical closeness. It was love intertwined with community resilience. Every challenge faced was now part of their shared story, a narrative infused with courage threading through hearts and binding them together in purpose. In this harmonious setting where love reigned supreme amid stormy pasts transformed into glimmering futures beckoning ahead, hope flourished, promising that no matter what paths lay before them next, their hearts would navigate these landscapes not alone but united as one family resilient enough to weather any storm together.